insurance, health insurance, hospitalization insurance. They paid for 3 seminars a year for her to attend. She lived less than 20 minutes from the office, had her own private parking space, was in on management decisions, 22 things. I said, now, ma'am, when you get home tonight, what I want you to do is take this list. I want you to get in front of the mirror, change one word from I like my job to I love my job. Look yourself in the eye and say, I love my job because they pay me for working there. I love my job because they have wonderful insurance. I love my job. I love my job. And say it with excitement and enthusiasm. The eyes are the windows of the soul. I said, first night, you'll sleep better. You'll dream a different dream. You will awaken more refreshed. Take the list with you, because tomorrow you will have already started to shift from being a fault finder. You know, some people find fault like there's a reward for it. You will take the list with you, and you will start discovering other things that you like about your job. Every morning and every night for the next 6 weeks, if you will do this, or the next 4 weeks, 30 days, I'll guarantee you a radical change will take place in your life. 6 weeks later, I was back in Birmingham doing a follow-up sales seminar. And though the lady was not in sales, she had enrolled in Automobile University the first time I was there. And she had been listening every morning, going to work and then going on the way home. And there she was. She had learned that everybody sells every day of their life. There she sat on the front row, grinning so wide she could have eaten a banana sideways. I'm telling you, you're talking about somebody that was excited. I said, well, how you doing? She said, Mr. Ziglar, I'm doing wonderfully well. You can't believe how much those people down there have changed. Good news, bad news. Bad news, ladies, you're not going to change that ornery husband of yours or that rebellious teenager. Bad news for you, husband, you're not going to change that wife of yours or that rebellious teenager. But let me tell you what you can depend on. When you change, when you do exactly what this Birmingham lady did, you're going to see some remarkable things happen in your own family. And it's not going to take 5 years for it to happen. You see, the reality is, folks, when we talk about this lady, her problem was not all her fault. You see, her parents had been nothing but fault finders all of her life. They told her, you'll never amount to anything. Why can't you be like your brother? You never look neat and all. I mean, over and over. And guess what kind of man she married? Exactly the same kind, fault finders. She had been beaten down. Her self-talk was that of the talk that had gone into her mind all of the years. I'm worthless. I'll never amount to anything. I'm no good. I mean, the whole 9 yards. But what happened was, to me, one of those really exciting things, and that is indicating that, yes, your attitude can change radically. You see, what she did was very simple. She changed her input. And when she changed her input, she became a good finder. And then she had that positive self-talk. Now, the thing, ladies and gentlemen, that I frequently mention, one of the reasons I speak with confidence is not because of what comes from me, but because of what comes through me. I have 25 people on my wall of gratitude, people that have been in my pathway all of my life, and they're still there. People that have helped me in so many occasions. And we do cover it physically, mentally, and spiritually. And when we do that, then we have every reason to believe that we're right. So I speak with that confidence, as I say, not because of what comes from me, but because of what comes through me. Chad Hempstead, one of the psychologists that I read about and read, he says you can't change from a negative mindset to a positive mindset without changing from negative talking to positive talking. To do that, you must change the input from negative to positive. Now, in order to have that balanced life that we all want, we need to understand that primarily it is built around relationships. Dr. Dean Ornish of Harvard University made this observation. He said your relationships are more important to your physical health than the food you eat, the exercise program you're on, or even the genes which you have inherited. Relationships. So how do you go about building those winning relationships? How do you change your thinking on that? How do you begin to recognize the importance of those other people? Let me set up a little scenario and see if it doesn't make sense that this would improve relationships not only at home but on the job and in the neighborhood. It's Friday afternoon in this little scenario. The husband has been gone all week long. He comes to the front porch of the home about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, laden with luggage and a bulging briefcase. Doesn't want to sit it all down to ring the doorbell, so he kicks the door. Now, he doesn't just kick the door, he tries to kick it down. Bang, 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 bang. His wife comes running to the door. He just stands there, doesn't set anything down still. He looks at her and he said, now, the reason I'm late is I've been to a meeting, and boy, I'm sure glad I went because I learned some things that really bug me. I learned that there are a lot of things around this house, a lot of my rights that I have not been getting. As a matter of fact, I have made a list of those rights. And the first thing me and you are going to do, woman, is we're going to sit down and talk. Because I'm telling you, as we go over this list, there are going to be some changes made around here. I can well imagine her responding, well, Buster, I didn't go to a meeting. I didn't need to. And I don't have a list. I didn't need to do that either. I've got them burned indelibly right here into my mind. You come on in. We are going to talk. There are going to be some changes made, and you're not going to like most of them. Now, don't you just know in your own heart and mind they had a wonderful, loving, romantic, idyllic weekend? Don't you know that they couldn't wait for Monday morning to come so they could go out there and change the world, make it a better place in which to live? But change the conversation and the attitude. Husband comes to the front porch, doesn't want to sit the luggage and bulging briefcase down, so he gently taps the door. His wife comes to it and he said, sweetheart, the reason I'm late is I've been to a meeting, and I'm so glad I went because I learned some things that really bother me. I learned that in all probability as a husband, I've not been meeting the needs which you have as a wife. First thing I want us to do, sweetheart, before I even unpack, is I want us to sit down and talk. I want you to tell me what I can do as a husband to become the kind of husband that you thought you were getting and you really deserve to have. I can well imagine her responding, well, actually, I've been very happy being your wife. From time to time, I've wondered if I've been meeting all of your needs. Let's do talk. Doesn't need any elaboration, does it? You really can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. Now, folks, you can't overcome a lifetime of neglect, even and or abuse with one pretty little speech on the front porch one day. But if it truly becomes your philosophy of life, then things can and will happen over a period of time, and it really won't take that long. That will absolutely astonish you, delight you, and amaze you in every imaginable way. I love the story of the fellow that walked in the bookstore, walked up to the lady manager and said, ma'am, could you tell me where I can find the book, Man, the Superior Sex? She said, oh, yes, it's upstairs in the science fiction department. Now, as soon as we all clearly understand there is no such thing as a superior sex, that there is no such thing as a superior race, when we clearly understand that, at that instant, we will have laid the foundation in this global world of ours where we're all over it in 3 seconds or less to build relationships with all peoples all over the globe. There is no superior sex. There is no superior race. Now, let me get real personal with this. The 5 people who had the most impact on my life by far were all women. Now, suppose I'd been sexist. Do you really think those women would have taken the interest in my life that they did? Oh, my mom would. But what about the others? No way. Minorities, God, for whatever reason, has put them in my life in big fashion. 3 Native Americans had a huge impact on my life. 1 in my sales career, 1 in my speaking career, 1 in my spiritual walk. I'm a Christian today because an elderly African-American lady spent the weekend in our home on July 4th, 1972. My daughter-in-law is from Campeche, Mexico. My closest friend for the last 37 years is a Jew from Winnipeg, Canada. He's more like a brother. My favorite writers are mostly Jewish. Rabbi Daniel Lapin and Michael Medved. Moses and Solomon and David and Matthew and Mark and Luke and John. Well, you get the picture of what I'm talking about. Minorities have played a huge role in my life. Our director of international operations is from India. I'm a spokesperson for a major or large Japanese company with a Korean president. Now, suppose I'd been racist. It is so frightening for me to even think about what I would have missed out on life had I been racist. And interestingly enough, the DNA now shows that Adam and Eve really did start it all. So I don't care how dark that person's skin is seated next to you, he is your blood brother or sister. That's right. Acts 17:26 clearly says we are all one blood. So let's take a look here now at how do you build those winning relationships. First of all, you neither look down nor up to people, but you look them eyeball to eyeball. They're no better than you, they're no worse than you. So we need to understand that. We also need to understand that to build winning relationships everywhere, including at home and on the job, we need to start with a character base. Oh, I know a lot of people say, character doesn't count, everything is relative. Well, you ask the young mother who's been abandoned by her husband with 3 children for her to raise, what she thinks about that. Or the young father with 3 children, his wife runs off with his best friend, ask him if he thinks that character doesn't count. Everybody says, a lot of people say everything's relative. Well, let me ask you a question. How many of you either work for a business or own a business? Can I see your hands? Now, how many of you would hire an accountant, a CPA, or a treasurer who admitted that he or she was just relatively honest? I guarantee you, when I return from an out-of-town trip, the redhead is not going to ask me if I'd been relatively faithful to her. Now, there's some things right and some things wrong. Now, when I talk about my wife, a lot of you know this, I always call her the redhead. She's a decided redhead. I mean, one day she just decided she is going to be a redhead. When I'm talking to her, I call her Sugar Baby. Her name is Jean. And we recently celebrated our 54th honeymoon. As you well know, anniversaries sometimes can be boring, but so far, no boring honeymoons have come our way. Now, the question is, what does everybody all over the world want? And again, I've asked this question literally all over the world. Everybody wants to be happy and healthy and at least reasonably prosperous and secure. They want to have friends, peace of mind, good family relationships, and the hope that the future is going to be even better. Now, in order to get all of these things, you got to deal with your personal life, your family, and your career. Got to deal with the financial, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. And everybody needs to love and be loved. And so let's look at how do we make those things happen. And we need to have them in balance. One of the little things I do about getting people to love you is I have a little thing I do that it serves 2 purposes. I always greet people the same way. Whether it's 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, I'll say, good morning. And if I catch them unexpectedly, whether it's 9 o'clock at night in New Zealand or in Augusta, Maine, they respond, good morning. Then they say, it's not morning. I said, then how come you to say morning? They said, because you said morning. I said, makes a good point. What you send out is exactly what you get back. Everything starts with you, your personal life. Your personal life affects your family life affects your business affects you physically, the physical affects the mental affects the spiritual affects the financial, and the financial affects you personally, and then it turns around and goes the other way. Look at it real good. I challenge you, name any 2 that don't affect the other one. Your personal life affects your spiritual and vice versa. The financial affects your business and vice versa. Everything affects everything else. We don't live in tight compartments. We don't live in isolated areas. The person that goes to work every day is the same one that goes home that night. 10 years ago, 2 presidential candidates debated family values. They never determined what they were. And the reason is simple. There are no such thing as family values. They're life values. The same values that will make you a good husband, a good wife, a good mom, a good dad will also make you a good employee or a good employer. Good member of the community, All of it traces directly or indirectly back to the family itself. When you put them all together, a synergy is developed. It's amazing how much more you can do if there's no conflict in the home, if there is support from each member of the family, if you're getting along well and living together. Let me share a beautiful story. Several years ago, a young man from Toronto, Canada, was flown down here by a good friend of his because he said that the man who flew him down here, bought his ticket and everything, said he has a hero, a role model, and the young man is following him and is destroying his life as a result of it. Well, when the young man came down, his name was Steve Walker, and it took me probably 15 minutes when I asked him, I said, Steve, I understand your boss is your role model. He said, that's right, most successful man I've ever known. I said, I understand you leave for work every morning at 6 o'clock, get home 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You do it 6 days a week, and sometimes you go to sleep driving back and forth the 30 miles. And that on Sunday, you're so tired, you spend the day in bed, and your health is not real good as a result of it, and the family is not overly happy. He said, that's right. I said, well, what do you rate as being successful? And then it took him several minutes to do this, but he finally got around, and if you've got this form in front of you, but whether you do or not, I want you to write down whether you get a plus or a minus on each one of these things. I said, Steve, let's evaluate your boss. Put him under the gun, under the microscope. Tell me, how happy is your boss? He said, I don't think he's happy at all. I said, why not? He said, well, I've never heard him laugh, and he seldom smiles, and besides that, he's got ulcers. So I said, well, we give him a big old minus on that, don't we? He said, you sure do. I said, well, now, Steve, if he's got ulcers, do we give him a plus or a minus on his health? He said, oh, we give him a minus on his health. I said, well, if he's got ulcers, it's because something's on his mind. Would you agree whether he does or does not have peace of mind? He said, oh, absolutely, no peace of mind. I said, Steve, of the 8 things everybody wants, your hero, most successful man you know, according to your own words, on the first question, flunked out on 3 of them. I said, tell me how prosperous is he? He said, man, he got money coming out of his ears, making more every day. I said, give him a big old plus on that one. He said, you bet. I said, how secure is he? He said, is it secure as money can make you? And I said, well, Steve, we had a couple of billionaire brothers right here in Dallas who went bankrupt. How does your boss compare? Man, he doesn't have that kind of money. Had an industrialist here and the next governor, both worth over $500 million. They're bankrupt. I said, how does he compare? Oh, he doesn't have that kind of money. I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's do. Would you be comfortable if I said there could be a question mark on that one? He said, absolutely. I said, tell me, how many friends does he have? Now, please grade your own papers, folks. You're the only one going to see it. You need to know where you stand. I mean, we need to evaluate ourselves. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. They're afraid they're not going to like what they see. But until you identify a problem, how on earth can you expect to solve the problem? I said to Steve, I said, tell me, Steve, how many friends does he have? And he paused just about 1/10 of a second. He said, I don't think he's got any. He said, I'm not his friend. I just happen to admire him because he's so successful. Tell you the truth, he's somewhat of a jerk. I said, well, we sure give him a minus on that one. And I said, tell me about his family. He said, his wife's divorcing him. I said, well, we give him a minus on that. I said, tell me, how much hope does he have for the future? He said, well, before I started talking to you, I thought he had a lot. But he said, now I don't think he has any. I said, well, we give him a minus on that, don't we? He said, absolutely. I said, Steve, of the 8 things everybody wants, this man, we give him a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We give him 6 minuses, 1 plus, and 1 question mark. And I asked Steve the same question I'm going to ask you right now. Knowing what you know, Steve, I said to him, would you swap places with your boss? He hesitated just for a few seconds, then he stood up, extended his hand, shook mine, and said, no, I wouldn't. The interview was over. One of my most prized possessions is a picture I carry in my wallet. I've transferred it now to my shirt pocket because about 5 years later in Baltimore, Maryland, a young man came up to me and said, you remember me? And I said, no, I really don't. I have a brilliant memory, but it is awful short. He said, well, you'll remember when I say this. He said, I'm the guy from Toronto who flew down to Dallas and talked to you. I said, you're Steve Walker? He said, yeah. He said, I just want to show you something. This is Steve Walker, his wife, who was going to divorce him, and their 4-year-old. He said, Zig, this is real growth. He said, I found I could make a lot more money if I used my mind a little more and my body a little less. That's what happened. He said, I put my priorities in order, and I balanced my life, and things have really gone so much better than then. Now, for that to happen, you got to have a balanced goals program. Dave Jensen at UCLA did a study on the people who attend the Peter Lowe Success Seminars, where I'm privileged to speak on each one. And what he found was this, and we had everybody from psychiatrists to truck drivers, from household executives to entrepreneurs to civil workers, service workers, the military, high school students, college professors. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle. Those with a goals program, now you do know everybody's got goals. That includes bank robbers and drugs addicts and alcoholics. They got goals, but one. The people who had a goals program earned an average of $7,401 a month out of all of those professions. This was reported in academia. Those without a goals program earned an average of $3,397 a month. But the good news is those with a goals program were happier and healthier and got along better with the folks at home. And though the survey did not show it, I'll bet you $9 to a nickel, which is my favorite non-bet, that they also had more friends, had greater peace of mind, and enjoyed the things that money cannot buy. Those are the things that all of us really do want. Well, let's make it personal, Zig, in these last few minutes. Let's take a look in the home. That's where the relationships are so important. Let me share with you some of our personal life. A number of years ago, my wife and I were having a cup of coffee in our bedroom. Things were quiet. She said, you know, honey, I wish I were younger. And I said, well, for crying out loud, why? She said, if I were younger, I could be married to you even longer. Now, folks, I don't need to tell you that was a precious moment in our life. A precious moment. Now, how do we go about building a relationship like that? How can we do some things that will make such a big difference in our own lives? Well, first of all, do you remember the Friday afternoon scenario? That's where you start. Second, understand that men and women are different. Ladies, your husband doesn't give a hoot about what's on television. All he wants to know is what else is on television. Fellas, you need to understand that your wife resents it when you ignore her all day. Then give her your undivided attention when the lights go out at night. She wants a hug when all you got on your mind is a hug. The redhead is known as the happy hugger. If it's moving, she'll stop it and hug it. If it's not moving, she'll dust it off and sell it. It's not an exaggeration to say that we will hug 10, 15, 20 times a day when I'm doing my work around the house, which is where I do all of my phoning and writing and that sort of thing. We court each other absolutely every day. We'll spend an hour at breakfast. We talk more today than we've ever talked. We treasure every moment. What do? You understand, yes, that men and women are different. Fellas, that wife of yours wants you to court her in the front yard, front porch, back room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, backyard. Everywhere you go, she wants the intimacy, the affection, the stroking of her hair, the holding of her hand, the arm around her waist. Looking her in the eyes as you hold her face and say, you are so beautiful. I'm so glad we got together all of those years ago. I've had marriage counselors all over the country tell me, as they've reviewed our courtship after marriage book and tapes, that marriages, they are using them, and life has come to be so much better than it was before. Men and women are different. I've been out to dinner hundreds of times, maybe thousands. I've never yet been out to dinner and had a man stand up and say, Bill, won't you and Paul and Charlie come go to the restroom with me? If ever do, I ain't going. Now, a bunch of women out, and one of them gets up, doesn't say a thing, nods her head, turns around and collects a crowd. Men and women are different. We need to understand and celebrate that difference, and we need to be careful who we listen to. One of the Hollywood stars was on TV being interviewed, and the host said, "Tell me, how do you hold on to a man?" Now, here's a gal been married so many times she had rice marks on her face. She doesn't have a clue. Not a clue. We need to look at the successful ones. You need to have fun in your marriage. You need to be nice and pleasant. The redhead runs a temperature when she's in a store that has chocolate-covered marshmallows in it. I mean, she can smell them 100 yards away on the 17th floor. She knows they're there. About twice a year, I'll buy her a dozen, covered with the foil, and I'll get a nice little card, and I'll put one of them right there. And when she sees it, she lets out a little squeal because she knows the chase is on. And for the next 6 or 8 weeks, the other 11 will be discovered. I'll put them up in the chandelier, in the rice canister. I'll put them in the deep freeze, in the glove compartment of her automobile, in one of her desk drawers. And every time she finds one, she lets out that little squeal and says, "Honey, I just found something." Have fun together. Court each other.